to feel a sense of belonging, just our collective, never-ending wanting to feel welcome. And so underneath, we will be number one. I wrote those two words, unreasonable hospitality. Got on the plane the next day to head back home to meet with my team, looked at that cocktail napkin and realized I had no frickin' idea what unreasonable hospitality meant. Which I think is okay. I think as individuals, even more often as organizations, we spend so much time trying to perfectly articulate an idea that we never start pursuing anything. I think we just need to trust. If you feel a connection to a goal, just start running towards it, knowing it will reveal itself to you along the way. I got back with the team, and the first night in our pre-meal meeting, we started talking about this. Hey, real quick, who here has worked in a restaurant dining room in their lives? Oh, sick. All right. My people. For those of you who did not raise your hand, pre-meal is the 30-minute meeting we hold with our entire team right before we unlock the doors and start welcoming people in for service. Many restaurants do it. Most restaurants waste it. They waste it by talking about ideas that can very clearly be communicated via an email. I think a daily huddle, when done well, is the most culturally transformational thing any business can do. And it's an opportunity to talk about the how and the why just as much as the what. It's a beautiful opportunity for leaders to share moments of inspiration, to invite their teams to do so in return. When done well, that is the meeting where the people you work with cease being a collection of individuals and come together as a trusting team, unlocking the collective creativity and capacity required to do anything of real significance. I believe it's the most important 30 minutes of the day, and anyone in here, if you don't have some version of a daily huddle, I implore you to figure out how to do it because it can be remarkably. And every day for weeks, I gathered the team together and I said, we are going to be number one and we're going to do it through unreasonable hospitality. Two things on that. I said for weeks. And any organization, what gets talked about is what gets thought about. If there is something and it's important to you, you better say it enough times that you grow sick of hearing yourself say it, or you've not said it enough for it to fully sink in. Two, I believe a leader in those meetings is responsible to communicate the what and the why. We're going to be number one, unreasonable hospitality. But great leaders invite everyone on their team to sit together and collectively identify the how. And so that's what we did with the entire team. We started working together to figure out what unreasonable hospitality meant. At first, we did kind of the obvious stuff. We looked at the experience. How do we make it more hospitable? When people call for a reservation, when they walk in the door, when we take their order, how do we make those elements, those touch points better? But pretty quickly, I realized we were focusing on the most obvious parts of the experience, which were by definition the exact same ones our competitors were focusing on. Here's something I learned in my own experience and working with a lot of people in the customer service industries. Very few people actually understand what every touch point in the experience they're serving is because they've never taken long enough to truly understand it. So we closed the restaurant for a day. We brought every single person in. By the way, I talk about meetings. Anytime we did a brainstorming meeting, we tried to include either every person on the team or someone from every level of the hierarchy within it. The reason? Former naval captain named David Marquet famously said, in most organizations, the people at the top have all of the authority and none of the information, while the people in the front line have all of the information and none of the authority. To do things of genuine consequence, you need to bridge the divide between authority and information. So we broke the team up into groups, gave every one of them a long piece of paper, and I said, hey, I want you to name with excruciating specificity every touch point that a guest has with us from the moment they decide to join us until however long after they've left. They got started right away. What I mean when I say that, someone walks in, their table's ready, we bring them right in. Someone walks in, their table's not ready, we send them to the bar for a drink. Someone goes to the bathroom, someone's up from the table when their entree gets served. You get the gist. I mean, every little thing, every moment of interaction. After an hour, I think they'd come up with 30, I pushed them to go further. After 2 hours, they'd gotten up to 70, I pushed them to go further. After 3 hours, we had 120. Now we knew what all the touch points were. Now we could start making them more awesome. By the way, I use the word awesome a lot. I think we get older, we feel like we need to be more professional, we stop using that word. And if you are in a business that is in charge of serving people, that is your entire job. To make as many things more awesome as you possibly can. I'll give you an example. At the very end of the list, it said, we drop the check. Okay, that's a touch point. Every single restaurant you've ever been to, they drop a check at the end of your meal. And yet, no one has ever done anything that creative with it. It's always the same. I shouldn't say always. Have you ever been to a diner and they've given you one of the red and white pinwheel mints? Okay, that's innovative. And it's actually remarkably impactful. Cornell University did a study where they compared 1,000 restaurants that give a mint to 1,000 restaurants that don't. Those that did, on average, had 18% higher tips. Proof that generosity begets generosity at a wildly asymmetrical rate. The cost of the mints was far lower than the value of the tips. You give a little bit, you get a lot more in return. But yet, outside of that, there's not really been much creative done with the check. Perhaps because we have this flawed belief system that if something feels transactional, it cannot also be hospitable. Or perhaps because it's just a hard moment to get right. Everyone in this room, whether you realize it or not, you get very impatient the moment you ask for the check. If it takes us too long to get it to you, we've lost you. At the same time, I can't drop it on your table before you've asked for it, otherwise what do you think I'm trying to do? In a fine dining restaurant, that bill is big. And so when we drop the check, it also gets a little bit harder to still have enjoyed the meal that you just consumed. But now that we identified it, now we could make it more awesome. And so I'll tell you what we did. If you were dining with us, you hadn't asked for the check yet, but I was sure you were done. I'd go over to your table with a glass for each one of you, an entire bottle of cognac. I'd pour a splash into each glass, then put the entire bottle down and say, hey, this is with our compliments. I'm gonna leave the bottle here. Help yourselves to as much as you'd like. And then I put the check down. Okay, what did we accomplish? A, no one ever had to ask for the check again. B, no one could ever feel like we were trying to rush them out. We'd just given them an entire bottle of free booze. It didn't cost us that much. Very rarely did people drink more than the splash we poured into their glasses, and on the occasion that someone did take us to town and drink the entire bottle, well heck, they had a really good time. At the moment that we gave them that big bill, we matched that moment with a gesture of profound generosity which kept the value proposition intact. And then perhaps my favorite, listen, any hospitality experience feels in some way like you've just been invited to your friend's house for dinner. My favorite moment when I have people over to mine is that moment at the end of the meal where there's just a few people left and someone grabs that last half-empty bottle of wine and pours the remains into the remaining glasses. At the end of an experience where we had served people's every single need, we gave them the gift of serving one another. All because we identified that as a touch point and worked to make it better. We're not the only people to have done this. Raise your hand if you've ever eaten at Five Guys. Okay, what do you think of when you think of Five Guys? Peanuts. The Economist said peanuts. By the way, almost everyone always says peanuts. And why? Because Five Guys is the only fast food restaurant in the world that had the wherewithal to recognize the time spent waiting for your burger to be cooked is a touch point in the experience. And they're the only ones that have ever done anything with that part of the experience. Say what you will about why they do it, it honestly doesn't matter because they've done something where no one else has ever done anything. It's given them an unfair competitive advantage. See, the smallest enhancements to the least likely touch points in a guest experience can have the greatest impact because you are making the choice to focus on something that no one else ever has. We did a lot of this over the course of the experience. Big things like the check and lots of little things, but the little things mattered too because raindrops make oceans. The cumulative impact of a lot of little changes on their own can become transformational. But still, I wasn't sure we'd figured out what it meant to be truly unreasonable. Until one day, about a year and a half later, I was in the dining room helping out the servers because we were just way too busy, and I found myself clearing appetizers from a table of 4 foodies. They were people on vacation to New York City from Europe just to eat at great restaurants. This was their last meal. They were going straight to the airport from our restaurant to head back home. And while I was clearing their table, I overheard them talking. And they were going on and on about the great meals they'd had. They'd been to Le Bernardin and Danielle and Per Se and Momofuku and now 11 Madison Park. They had the trip of their lives, but then one woman jumped in and said, yeah, but you know what we never had? We never got a hot dog from one of the street carts. You know that moment in a cartoon where the light bulb goes off over the character's head? As calmly as I could, I went back to the kitchen, dropped off the plates, and literally ran outside, bought a hot dog, ran back inside. Then came the very challenging part, which was convincing my fancy chef to serve it in our fancy restaurant. But ultimately, he agreed, and we cut the hot dog up into 4 perfect pieces, and we added a little swish of ketchup and a swish of mustard and a perfect little teaspoon scoop of sauerkraut and relish to each plate. We made it look very fancy. And before their final savory course, which was a honey lavender glazed Muscovy duck that had been dry aged for 2 weeks using a technique that took us years to perfect, I brought out what we in New York City call a dirty water dog to their table. And I explained it. I said, hey, I just want to make sure you don't go home with any culinary regrets. Here is that New York City hot dog. And guys, I just don't even have the words to fully articulate the extent to which they freaked the F out. Mind you, I've been serving food my entire career, millions of dollars worth, Wagyu beef, lobster, foie gras, all the fancy stuff. I'd never seen anyone react to anything I served them like they did to that hot dog. You know, athletes always go to the tapes when they've had a bad game to see what mistakes they made, to try to make sure they don't repeat those mistakes. What they don't do often enough, what honestly none of us do often enough, is go to the tapes when we've had a good game, to see what we did well, to make sure that we keep on doing that thing. That's how you put intention to intuition. It's how you take these seemingly accidental things that happen in your business and grab onto them and hold onto them and put systems behind them to make sure that they become a part of your DNA. So I looked at the tapes of the hot dog. What happened to make that happen? What could our entire team start doing to make sure things like that would start happening all the time? Okay, the first, it just required being present, which is an annoyingly overused term these days, but in hospitality, it is everything. For me, being present, all that means is caring so much about the person you're with that you stop caring about everything else you need to do. These days, with these as perpetual distractions in our pockets or with our ever-growing to-do list, we have an inability to actually slow down for long enough and listen to those around us. I had to be present to hear that throwaway line about the hot dog. Second, it required the notion that if you want to be the best at anything, you better take what you do seriously. And also, we all need to stop taking ourselves so seriously. Way too often, we let these self-imposed standards get in the way of us giving the people around us the things that will bring them the most joy. Brands are very important. They are your bumper stickers to the world. But the moment your brand tells you that you are not allowed to do the thing that will make one of your key stakeholders happy, the relationship is out of whack. A hot dog in a 4-star restaurant is sacrilegious until you look at how it made them feel. And third, I like to redefine the word hospitality every year or so. I think the better you are at articulating an idea, the better you become at compelling those around you to embrace it. One of my favorite definitions of hospitality is that it's about making people feel seen. And if that's the case, the best way to do it is not to treat them like a commodity, but as a unique individual. I really do believe I could have given that table like a bucket of caviar and a bottle of vintage Krug. It would not have had the same impact as the $2 hot dog, because it would not have been specific to them. So the third thing, in unreasonable hospitality, one size fits one. The greatest gestures are bespoke to the people you're serving them to. If the hot dog was our new true north, in these 3 things we now had a roadmap, and I got my team together every night at pre-meal and encouraged them to go out and make it their own, to be present, to not take themselves too seriously, and to find the one size fits one. They got fired up, we got started right away, but I quickly realized just a few weeks in that I'd made a mistake. See, we were only doing like one of these things a night. The reality is that I came up with a great idea, gave the team permission to get on board, but did not give them the resources to make it possible. And we didn't have like people just hanging out during service to go run errands for us. So we added a position to the team, someone whose entire job was to help everyone else bring their ideas to life. We called the position the Dreamweaver, named after the iconic song by Gary Wright. And with the addition of that position, we were on fire. Every night doing countless of these things. We did little things that cost a little bit of money. One time there was a business traveler in from LA, and he was also going to the airport to head back home right after his dinner. We overheard him saying that he had forgotten to buy his daughter the one thing she asked for, one of those stuffed teddy bears with the I Heart NY logo on it. Now he didn't have time, she was gonna be so disappointed. Easy, Dreamweaver's got him one. On his way out the door, we gave it to him. This is a grown-ass businessman starts crying on his way out of the restaurant. We did bigger things that cost more money. One time there was a family of 4 with us from Spain, parents and their children. We had these big windows, it started snowing. We realized it was the kids' first time seeing real snow. Dreamweaver somehow found a store still open at 8 o'clock on a Friday night, and when they left, we had an Uber SUV with sleds in the back and a big thermos of hot chocolate to take them for the best nightcap of all time, sledding with their kids for the first time in Central Park. Or we did transformationally big things that didn't even cost a penny. One time a couple came in to dine with us. They'd just gotten married at City Hall. They had a big wedding planned, but some irreparable drama broke out between the two families and they just canceled it. This was now their wedding night. The server, mind you, a server is an hourly employee, but on her own, still, she took the entire meal to figure out what their wedding song was going to be. We slowed down their meals such that they were the last in the room, and by that time, most of my team was done with work up in our private dining room having a staff party, but it was actually their wedding reception. We brought them in. As soon as they set foot in the room, on cue, we played their wedding song, Lovely Day by Bill Withers. We'd given them the gift of their first dance. We were making so many people so very happy, but the coolest thing was I had never seen a team of people happier. There's a quote by Maya Angelou, people will forget what you say, they'll forget what you do, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. We were making a lot of people feel a lot of things. We were addicted. We wanted more. But there's a problem with the gestures I just went through with you. They're not really scalable. Right? You need to react to something you hear, come up with an idea very quickly, turn it around, and use some creativity. And so one day we said, hold on, I wonder if we can actually systemize this. And this is what we came up with. We brought the entire team back in, just like the first exercise, but this time, instead of asking them to write down all the things that happened for everyone, we did a different exercise that I now call pattern recognition of recurring moments. We asked them to think about the things that just happen once in a while to some people. Because if we could identify these things in advance and then with some creativity and intention, decide how we were going to react to them, even produce the assets required, we could start making magic constantly. On that list, well, clearly people went to the airport right after their meal from time to time, right? So, easy enough. We made these beautiful boxes with a graphic designer that said 11 Madison Park airplane food, filled them with delicious snacks, so that the next time someone said it, we just went into the back, grabbed a box, gave it to them. It was not less special because we had a bunch more in the back, it was still specific to them. We even cleared out an entire closet. We called it the Hospitality Toolkit Closet. We started filling it with stuff. Perhaps my favorite, a lot of people got engaged at our restaurant. Just quick show of hands, who here has gotten engaged at a restaurant? Okay, you sir, over there. Did they pour you free champagne? Okay. Champagne was on the table before she said yes. That's risky. You're like trying to find wood to knock on. Anyone who raised their hand, I hope they poured you free champagne. If they didn't, you got engaged at the wrong restaurant, because that's pretty reasonable hospitality. But once we had identified it, now we put a group together and we said, how do we make this more awesome? This is what we came up with. Across the park was Tiffany & Co.'s corporate offices. I went over there, found the CMO. Over the course of a few meetings, convinced her to give me 1,000 of those iconic Tiffany blue boxes, each with 2 champagne flutes in them. Put them in the toolkit closet. Next time someone came in, and got engaged. We poured them free champagne like we always would have, but what they wouldn't notice was that their champagne glasses looked just a little bit different from everyone else's. When they finished the champagne, took them back in the back, washed them, dried them back into the box, and on their way out of the restaurant, we'd give them the glasses that they toasted their engagement to, thanking them for celebrating with us and congratulating them on their lives ahead. I've talked to so many people who got engaged there. Keep in mind, we had some of the best food in the world at this point that don't remember a single thing they ate. But they'll never forget how we made them feel when we gave them those glasses. We did thousands of these things. From the touch points, to the Dreamweaver, to the hospitality toolkit. And in 2017, we went to Melbourne, Australia for the 50 Best Awards. A new fancy auditorium. I had a new fancier tuxedo. And they started the countdown. 50, thank God, was not us. 40 was still not us. 30 was still not us. At 20, I totally blacked out. Came back to at 5, not us. 4, not us. 3, not us. Okay, you know how this works, right? And there's 2 restaurants left. If they call number 2 and it's not you, you know you've won. And I can say this only because he's one of my very, very close friends now, but there is some poetic justice here. Guess who the other restaurant was? The frickin' Italian guy. They called his restaurant as the number 2 restaurant in the world. We became number 1, not because of our excellent thinking. But it was not because of our excellence. I want to make sure, I don't want the wrong message to be taken away. Excellence is very, very important. It's a prerequisite to everything I'm talking about. But when you decide that you want to play at a certain level, excellence is table stakes. We became number 1 because we made the choice to be as unreasonable in pursuit of how we were making people feel as every other restaurant on that list was solely in pursuit of the thing they were selling those people. I wrote this book, and I'm going around speaking to different groups because I believe unreasonable hospitality is a win-win-win. It is great for the people you're serving, obviously. You're making people happy, you're going above and beyond in a time when it just doesn't feel like that happens as often. But it's also great for the bottom line. Because listen, I spent money on this stuff, but every dollar I ever spent on traditional or unreasonable hospitality was far more impactful than any dollar I ever spent on traditional marketing. Because you give people stories like this to tell, what do you think they're gonna do? They're gonna go out and start telling them over and over and over again. And one day you wake up and have legions of ambassadors out there singing your praises. But most importantly, especially during times when the unemployment rate is quite low, it was great for our team. Because for the first time, they had autonomy, they were empowered, they were no longer just serving plates of food that someone else created, they were imbuing the experience with their own creativity, and I have yet to meet a single individual who won't give more of themselves to help them something succeed than when they have a hand in determining what that thing is. Not to mention the fact that they were happy because we were making other people happy, and well, there are few things more energizing than when you get to see the look on someone else's face when they receive a gift you're responsible for giving them. So let's address the elephant in the room. Why did they bring a restaurant guy to talk to you all? Well, I think we all do different things, but actually we all do the same thing. We're all in the business in some way, shape, or form of serving other people. The US used to be a manufacturing economy. Now it's a service economy, and dramatically so. Over 3/4 of our GDP is driven by the service industries. That means that statistically speaking, 75% of you, that's what you do. You know, companies are always looking to figure out what is their unique competitive advantage, what is their moat, that thing that will prevent their competitors from coming in and eating their lunch. And typically, that conversation is zeroed in around the quality of their product or the strength of their brand. But here's the thing. I don't care how good your product is. I don't care how strong your brand is. Eventually, Could be quickly, could take a little bit. Someone will come around who is smarter, who's more innovative, who's younger with fresher ideas, who has more money, and they will build a better product or they will create a stronger brand. The best moat that exists comes when you invest consistently and generously into your relationship capital accounts. Because relationships take a long time to build, and if you build them in the right way, they take a long time to erode. So I'm just here to provide a little bit of encouragement. That the next time you find yourself pursuing a relationship, and by the way, I'm using those words with great intention because that's another one of my favorite definitions of hospitality. It is being creative and intentional in pursuit of relationships. To try being just a bit more unreasonable. To give people that sense of belonging, to give them the kind of memories that'll last a lifetime. I promise you, based on my own experience and that of working with other companies since, that it will make your businesses more profitable, but I can also promise you this. It will make you and all of the people you work with just feel really, really good. It is such a privilege to be here. Thank you for having me.